Coming from the same studio responsible for the Yakuza series, Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise is based on the popular manga, with the player stepping into the role of Kenshiro, who after being beaten roams the apocalyptic wasteland in the hopes of finding his stolen fiancée. With a multitude of attacks at your disposal right from the beginning, Lost Paradise enables you to dispatch crooks and outlaws in the desert with ease, while executing foes who blatantly underestimate you. The fighting system is where the game shines, and is mainly comprised of various combos that are brutal in their execution. With up to 20 enemies on screen at a time, each encounter can often become a frantic affair, with your special finishes soon becoming your ace in the hole. These moves are all presented with a beautiful cinematic quality and require you to input a series of buttons in a short amount of time to unleash their full potential. It's not all just simply about fighting though, as the game is made up of several different aspects that see you searching the world and interacting with various NPCs that occupy it. From shopkeepers that deal in useful items, to those seeking help and offering up many of the side quests that help flesh out the game in significant ways. Much like the Yakuza, there's also a small selection of minigames that help pass the time. These range from becoming a bartender to racing in the Coliseum, which all have their own unique gameplay setups and add a touch of variety, as well as humor to the otherwise serious story. If you're looking for a lengthy, story-focused, over-the-top action game with tons of crazy things to do and see, then this game is for you. Tokyo Xanadu is an action RPG that shares a lot in common with the Persona series. As the player, you assume the role of a high school student who is thrown into another world through a mysterious portal where monsters known as greed reside. It's not long after that you discover your ability to fight these demons through the use of spiritual weapons or soul devices that prompt the player and a group of his friends to help clean up the streets of Tokyo and hopefully bring an end to the ever-increasing threat that the greed pose. The game is largely split into two separate styles of play. The first is the free roaming aspect that sees you attending school and forming bonds with your classmates, whilst the second is comprised of exploring the overworld and getting stuck into the various battles that make up the game. Forming connections with your friends soon becomes a huge part of the game, and through the use of friendship shards, it's possible to progress these relationships, and by doing so you'll gain access to some of the story's more touching moments, as well as unique items and equipment that make fighting through the various dungeons all the more manageable. Speaking of fights, combat is carried out in real time, with each character having their own soul device to call their own. Each of these devices have a specific elemental affinity that comes along with them, that's either effective or useless against specific enemies who also possess their own respective weakness against one of 5 different types of elements. Naturally, you'll find yourself leveling up and developing stronger strategies to increase your chances of victory. With so many to learn, it's something that's going to keep you busy for quite some time. Overall, with its unique, enjoyable combat, seemingly endless amount of side quests and intriguing narrative, Tokyo Xanadu is definitely worth picking up. Nearly 30 years have passed since Doom made its debut and popularized first-person shooters. Although the genre has evolved since then, exploring new avenues and aesthetics, the great classic from id Software continues to inspire games to this day. This is where Proteus comes in, which is a fast and gut-wrenching shooter. The game wastes no time in catapulting you straight into the action, and right from the very first levels, you'll find yourself exploring large and often rather intricate areas, which are all populated by dozens, if not hundreds of enemies to mow down. Your arsenal consists of various options that all have a role to play when the time calls for it. From shotguns to pistols and rocket launchers, there's a nigh on endless amount of ways to cause mayhem, and thanks to the tight and responsive controls, the gunplay will never fail to impress. On top of this, each weapon has 2 fire modes that can offer you extra tactical possibilities. For instance, the shotgun, which can be briefly charged up and still deal a respectable amount of damage from far away. By far the most impressive aspect of the game though has to be Proteus's inventive art design, which combines vintage sprites with intricate 3D lighting, particle and blood effects that create a visceral and intricate style, against which the player can engage in limitless acts of demon slaughter. Complementing this is the hard-hitting soundtrack that pounds away in the background and matches the on-screen action perfectly. On the whole, if you're looking for an FPS with a classic atmosphere and gameplay, then Proteus would make for a great choice. When it comes to racing games on the PlayStation 4, the likes of Gran Turismo and Drive Club provided players with a lifelike experience, but for long-time fans of the channel, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of arcade races, and Hotshot Racing shares much in common with the likes of Virtua Racing and Ridge Racer. Like many racing games, everything is divided up into a series of modes, with the main attraction being the Grand Prix. It sees you selecting a driver and jumping into one of several cars as you tackle a series of different tracks. But it's not just simply about beating the competition, but rather racing against the clock, as the main aim of each race is to hit several checkpoints that give you extra time to complete each challenge. Upon doing so, you'll receive currency that can then be spent on extra outfits for your driver, as well as several body options for your car. Unfortunately, there's nothing that allows you to dive into the minute details and tinker with your car's performance, which honestly feels like a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's nothing that ruins the game as a whole. There is one big hurdle when it comes to the gameplay, however, and that's the huge emphasis on drifting, and for some it might be a bit much to get used to, as pulling them off can mean the difference between successfully taking a corner or spinning out of control. Mastering it is essential, as by doing so you'll slowly fill a boost meter that gives you an extra edge and helps you gain any lost ground. And although there is a pretty steep learning curve, once everything clicks, Hotshot Racing really comes into its own and cements itself as one of the more enjoyable races on the PlayStation 4. Chained Echoes feels like a love letter to the RPGs of old, and provides an adventure that's reminiscent of the many games we all grew up playing, but adds in a few modern twists that help it become something all of its own. Glenn, the protagonist, is a teenage mercenary who drives something known as a sky armor, and ends up seeing a terrible weapon in action. After that, a princess by the name of Len appears, pretending to be a guard traveling undercover in order to experience life for herself. Len, Glenn, and various characters you meet along the way are all pushed into an adventure together through a variety of different scenarios as you try to negotiate everything the game throws your way while learning about the state of the kingdom. Now, Chained Echoes isn't your typical RPG. There are no experience bars or levels present, and instead progression is handled through the use of something known as Grimoire shards. These are earned at certain points in the game and allow you to augment your character's abilities through the skill tree system, which offers a generous amount of ways to change your characters over the course of the game. The turn-based design for combat is standard, but there are some noticeable changes to help things feel fresh and engaging, mainly the overdrive meter, which can improve the stats of your entire party if you manage it correctly. Every action you do in battle will raise the overdrive meter's ticker, and if it reaches the green gauge, your squad will gain the advantages of dealing more damage, receiving less themselves, and having all of their spell costs reduced by half. In the end, for a game developed largely by one person, Chained Echoes is a crowning achievement that deserves a spot in everyone's collection. So if you're fond of the RPGs of old, don't hesitate to pull the trigger on this one. Get Even successfully combines a variety of gaming genres into one cohesive experience without making any of them seem pointless or unnecessary. Mainly horror, first-person shooting, and various puzzles comprise the game as a whole. However, it's executed so skillfully and smartly that you'll find yourself continually adjusting to that particular type of play with ease. You take on the part of Cole Black, a mercenary who is searching for answers about his past, and after the initial opening, you wake up in an asylum and are led by a strange figure known only as Red through an unsettling maze of cells, hallways, and rooms. To go into more detail here wouldn't be fair, as the sole reason to play Get Even is to enjoy the ride and see how it all unfolds. Sure, the gameplay isn't as compelling or solid as the narrative around it, and it's by no means the best shooter out there. And while passable, it often feels inflexible and stiff, which can cause a few issues when it throws multiple enemies at you at once. Even then, there's still reasons to praise what's here, as some of the weapons you get to use are so weird and original that they're an absolute blast to use. The puzzles are also quite a challenge, and while some of them fail, the creativity that surrounds them and the fact that there are multiple solutions are both quite welcome. Exploring the environment will always be beneficial, but you can also use your own wits to tackle each of them. When it comes down to it, Get Even is a game that has got to be played from beginning to end, because the outcome is a highly satisfying adventure with an engaging story that offers creepy, emotional, and thought-provoking moments that help it stand out. However, depending on how you want to approach things in terms of gameplay, Get Even may be a bit polarizing. Lake centers around a woman known as Meredith Weiss, who after achieving her goals in life still doesn't quite feel fulfilled. The stress of her day job is starting to take its toll, and she decides to head back to her childhood home to take on the job of her father, who delivers the town's mail. The theme of the game is the importance of taking a step back, slowing down and realizing what's important in life, and the slow, methodical nature of the gameplay fits this theme perfectly. There are no riddles to solve, only beautiful landscapes, a van full of mail to deliver, and the chance to catch up with old acquaintances. The core of the game is the relationships with these various people who occupy the town, and you are given several dialogue options when it comes to interacting with them. The decisions you make and the relationships you cultivate over the course of the game leave an impression on Meredith. And while there is nothing quite as dramatic as the life or death decisions in Mass Effect, there is a real sense at the end of the adventure that you've succeeded in carving out your own unique tale. Visually is where Lake really stands out though, rendered in lush 3D with a lightly cel-shaded look that feels both realistic and handmade at the same time. The lake sparkles in the sun, and the trees rustle in the breeze, with the exception of a few days of rain or storms. As you leave town, the white picket fences and brilliantly painted wooden homes give way to vast countryside, deserted cabins in the woods, and even a retro diner with a neon sign that feels like something lifted directly from the 1950s. Overall, it's a warm, comfortable experience that's perfect for winding down after a tough day, and with its cozy atmosphere, it's completely possible to get entirely swept up in Meredith's journey, which soon will feel like your own. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is very much a traditional RPG that takes place in the near future, where a digital service known as Eden has become a part of everyday life. This service allows those who use it to shop, chat with friends, and carry out daily activities, but after a series of hacks that have caused some of its users to enter a comatose state, you and your group of friends set out to get to the bottom of it, which sets into motion a grand story that surprisingly gets rather dark throughout its runtime. In terms of gameplay, you'll find yourself exploring the real world, which is seemingly based on Tokyo, and of course jumping into Eden, where a lot of the action takes place. Here you'll be fighting your way through a series of dungeons and getting stuck into the turn-based battles that make up each of them. To tackle the enemies you'll come across, you'll have to build and nurture a team of different Digimon that naturally all possess their own unique types of attacks and attributes. What helps the game excel though is the evolution system that allows your Digimon to evolve into stronger forms. While the possibilities are not endless, the choice to explore varying branches allows you to see and experience other Digimon not commonly known through the TV series or prior games. It's this freedom to experiment that gives the game an addictive quality, and with the amount of different options, it's easy to lose hours upon hours, slowly perfecting your team and finding the right Digimon that suit your style of play best. There are some problems with Digimon Cyber Sleuth though. The game's repetitiveness and shallow character design stand out in a vivid but warped universe, despite how brilliantly it plays on nostalgia. But even so, it's a fantastic addition to the genre that both younger players and devoted fans will find hard to put down. The PS4 is no stranger to action RPGs, with many different titles offering up some of the best the genre has ever seen. One that doesn't get enough love though has to be Kingdoms of Amalur, which originally released on the Xbox 360 but was later expanded upon in a re-release that built upon the original's foundation. From the start, you get to create a character and set off on your adventure that sees you exploring a vast world brimming with several types of enemies and obstacles to overcome. By far what helps the game succeed though is the combat. Each of your abilities can be assigned to one of the face buttons, which allows you to quickly switch between melee and magic attacks on the fly. It's very much a fast and fluid system that encourages you to build combos with nice feedback and elegant maneuvers that keep each encounter from becoming stale. The combinations in here are endless, and the best part is that you're never locked in. If you fancy mixing up your approach, you can simply pull out a different weapon and take advantage of the various qualities that come along with it. Naturally, as you make your way through the game, you'll level up and receive skill points as well, which can be spent on acquiring new ways to further enhance your proficiency. And much like the weapons, the level of freedom afforded to the player through the skill tree system allows you to wipe the slate clean and never having to stick to the same path. When it comes to value, Re-Reckoning isn't a short adventure and is absolutely jam-packed with quests to undertake, loot to find, and monsters to kill. It's bound to take quite a while to see everything the game has to offer, making it perfect for several playthroughs and experimenting with the various options you're given. Ultimately, if you never got around to it on the 360, then Re-Reckoning is the best way to experience this cult classic today. Every now and then, a game appears that is so unique that you can't help but notice it. This was the case with Gravity Rush on the PlayStation Vita, that introduced one of the wildest concept players had seen in a while: the ability to control gravity. Its sequel on the PlayStation 4 built upon everything the first game established and took the ideas behind it even further, resulting in a much more refined and enjoyable adventure. You once again stepped into the shoes of Kat, a rather special young lady who has the power to manipulate the gravity around her. With it being a sequel, it picks up where the events of the first game left off and sees her traveling to a mysterious new land which sports a huge bustling city as its main location. From here you can take on a series of quests that advance the story, but also several side activities that help flesh out the world and make it feel like a living and breathing space. Now, without a doubt, the finest aspect of Gravity Rush 2 is the gameplay, and for those familiar with the first game, you'll instantly feel right at home. We've got several new gravity powers this time around that make beating on enemies all the more intuitive, and thanks to a pretty robust upgrading system, the game is constantly dealing out new ways to deal with each and every threat that floats your way. These abilities also have an effect on the way you traverse the environment, widening the amount of tactical options at your disposal. My favourite aspect of the game though has to be the visuals, which look absolutely stunning and is presented in a cel-shaded manner. Everything feels smooth, detailed and vibrant as you make your way through the various locations that make up the game, and it's a vast improvement over its predecessor. With its beautiful world, unique gameplay opportunities and incredible characters, Gravity Rush 2 is a game you do not want to miss. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 2 as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos that release every Monday and Thursday. You can follow me on all of the socials, which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters: Rhino, Skill Jim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Pierce Salaryman and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.